Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Friday, November the 12th. We do have a big Friday night slate. We got 11 games to go over. As always guys, we're going to go game by game. We're going to talk through each game on the slate. We're going to break down each team, kind of give my early thoughts, and then as we do go through each game, we'll kind of build out an early core, 5 guys that I do like at first look. I'm taking a first look at this slate on Thursday night, so before we get started with the breakdown, as always, guys, please do hit the like button down below. I do appreciate all the likes. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel as well. And check out the sponsor of the video, Prize Picks. For those of you that have not signed up for Prize Picks yet, Prize Picks is more of a player prop based DFS site, so they're a little bit different than DraftKings and Yahoo and FanDuel and every other site. You're basically going to pick the over or the under on their projections they have listed. Now, they usually don't post NBA projections till like early, the day of the slate. I'm recording this Thursday night, so they probably won't have stuff for NBA posted till like early Friday morning. But you can check out their NBA board Friday, see everything they have posted. Basically, you just pick over or under. They'll have like point projection, rebounds, assists, three-pointers made. They'll also have fantasy point projections for each player, which is what I like to kind of bet on. You basically take the over or the under on their fantasy point projection. You can win up to 10 extra money over on Prize Picks. If you guys want to check them out, if you want to sign up, be sure you use promo code NOAH. When you do sign up for Prize Picks, they will match your first deposit, give you a free bet up to $100 when you sign up with code NOAH. But yeah, guys, let's take a look at Friday's big 11-game slate. I'm going to try and go through these games rather quickly, just kind of talk on the plays that really stand out. We're not going to talk about, bench guys and all that, just really like the core options. So from the Knicks side of this game, Knicks and Hornets, Julius Randle, I think at 10,200 is a pretty good low-owned stud option. Really, really good matchup here against Charlotte. Charlotte's been playing really fast this year. They've been really bad defensively as well. This is definitely a matchup that Julius Randle, I think, can have a lot of success in. He's been pretty inconsistent this year. He's shown a big ceiling, but he's also shown somewhat of a low floor. But still, Randle has a ton of upside. I like him as a lower-owned tournament play. I think he will be low-owned on this slate. Outside of Julius Randle, though, I'm not that thrilled about any other Knicks. RJ Barrett is fine, I guess. Kemba Walker, D Rose, I'm not going to play on this slate. Same with Fournier. Fournier's prices come way down to 4,800, but he's just been so inconsistent lately. He's a tough guy to roster, so really it's just Randle from the Knicks for me, and I think that's probably it. Now on the Charlotte side, looking at the Hornets, LaMelo at 9,900. I think it's a fine tournament play. I think LaMelo will also be very low owned on this slate. For the most part, ownership tends to be spread out on big slates like this. So you'll probably get LaMelo at like 5% owned. I played LaMelo last slate on Wednesday when it was like 13 games. He was like 3% owned Wednesday. He had a bad game, only 38 DK points, but we've been seeing him play big minutes lately. He's been getting 32, 34 minutes a night. LaMelo has triple-double upside. He is a guy that can stuff the stat sheet. The matchup against the Knicks may not be ideal, but the Knicks have been a little bit worse defensively this year than they were last season. So far this year in defensive rating, the Knicks are, they've actually been pretty good defensively in terms of defensive rating, but I know, as a team, they overall haven't been that great, I think. So I think, the spot for LaMelo is fine. Kemba Walker's never really been that good of a defender, neither has Derrick Rose. So, those guys, I'm not really worried about slowing down LaMelo. I think LaMelo in tournaments makes some sense. Outside of LaMelo, though, Mason Plumlee, I could see going to maybe at 4,700, against a Knicks front court that, plays big. They're going to have one of Randle, Mitchell Robinson, Noel if he plays. One of those guys is going to be on the floor at all times. I think you're going to see probably Mason Plumlee play like 32 minutes. He's been in foul trouble a lot, though, lately. He's fouled out in 3 of their last 4 games. Foul trouble is an issue for him, but for 4,700, if you get like 32 minutes from Plumlee, he could be viable. I don't think he's like a standout play, but at least playable. Kelly Olynyk came off the bench last game, shot the ball really well, got hot from the field. I'm not going to chase that. I think Olynyk does have upside because when he does come off the bench and get hot, you can see him put up big games. But for the most part, he's shown to be pretty inconsistent this season. Even when he does put up a big game, he could put up a stinker the next day. Just a super, volatile player. We'll have to see what his ownership is. Maybe if he's like super low owned, I could see going to Kelly Olynyk, but don't think I'm really going to go there. Overall, there's not a ton I love in this game, but I think LaMelo, Randle, they're fine plays, fine pay-up options. But next game, the Bucks and the Celtics. On the Bucks side, Giannis at 12K. Giannis probable, so expected to play today. Giannis at this point I think is pretty much matchup proof. The spot on the road against Boston may not be ideal, but Giannis is going to play a ton of minutes if it's a close game. With Middleton still out, we know Giannis, Drew Holiday are going to be the guys that really dominate the usage. Giannis is one of the safest pay-up options every night. He gives you a massive floor, gives you a high ceiling as well. I think Giannis is a top option once again. I think if you want to fit him in, by all means, feel free to play him. Outside of Giannis, though, I don't like too much else on Milwaukee. Drew at 6,600, it's fine, but don't love him. Bobby Portis is up to 6K now, so he's not as good of an option as he has been lately when he's been so cheap. Grayson Allen at 5,200, not that interested in. Pat Connaughton got hot last game, but at 4K, I'm probably not going to play him. So I think from Milwaukee today, it might just be Giannis, and that's really it. Now on the Boston side, it's kind of the studs here for me, and that's it too. Jaylen Brown's going to remain out, so Jason Tatum at 10,100, I do like as a pay-up option. I think he will come in a little bit lower owned. He was relatively low owned last slate. There's a ton of games then, and there's obviously 11 games tonight. I think the stud ownership for the most part is going to be spread out. So just kind of pick your favorite stud. I think Tatum's one guy I do like quite a bit at 10-1. At this price point, I don't think he gets a ton of ownership, like I said. $41 on Yahoo at the small forward position. I think he looks really good over on Yahoo as well. Without Jaylen Brown, Tatum's going to dominate the usage, has a ton of upside, going to play big minutes. I like him quite a bit. I think Dennis Schroeder is a fine option too. Without Jaylen Brown, he's going to start, play pretty big minutes. Doesn't give you a massive ceiling, but I think at 6,200, he's a fine mid-range guard option. I would kind of group him and Drew Holiday together. But that's it for the most part, I think, from Boston. Tatum is clearly the standout play here for me. Now, next game, Detroit and Cleveland. On Detroit here, there's actually a decent amount to like from Detroit today, and Detroit's not a team I usually get excited to roster. But Cade Cunningham at 5,600, I think is a pretty good play. I thought he was a pretty good play last slate at only 5,200 in a good matchup against Houston, and he did pretty well, scored 35 Draftkings points, played 30 minutes. He's been getting consistent minutes lately. He's played at least 29 minutes in 4 straight games. He's probably going to play like 30 to 32 minutes here. I think Cade looks really good on DraftKings. I think he looks really good on Yahoo as well. Do like him quite a bit over there. $21 at the shooting guard position. He's for sure one of my favorite shooting guards, kind of at first look on Yahoo. So I like Cade a lot. And then we got word that Kelly Olynyk's going to be out today, and I think he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. So with Kelly Olynyk out, that does free up more minutes for a guy like Isaiah Stewart. Now, Isaiah Stewart this season has been pretty disappointing. He was a guy that I was pretty high on heading into the year. I thought with Mason Plumlee no longer on the team, with Isaiah Stewart starting at center, I thought he was going to be poised for a big season. But that really hasn't been the case so far. But now that Kelly Olynyk is out right now, Kelly Olynyk has been a guy that's come off the bench and taken minutes away from Stewart this year. Without Kelly Olynyk, I mean, the only backup bigs they have are Trey Lyles and maybe Luke Garza gets some minutes, but Luke Garza's barely been in the rotation this year. He has been getting more playing time lately, but I think Isaiah Stewart is poised to see big minutes moving forward with Olynyk out, and for 4,300, he definitely stands out as one of the better value plays today on DraftKings, and I think on Yahoo you could definitely play him over there as well. I'm not going to include him in the early core, but at $16, I think Isaiah Stewart looks like a really good play on Yahoo too. He's always been a productive player when he gets minutes. I think the minutes upside, the minutes ceiling, and the minutes floor is a lot higher now that Kelly Olynyk's out, and they're going to need him out there against Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland, they do play big. They normally have one of Evan Mobley or Jared Allen on the floor at all times. So I think at 4,300, Isaiah Stewart is a standout value. I think Cade Cunningham's a good play as well. But that's probably it from Detroit. Now in Cleveland, there's some guys here you could go to in tournaments. I think for the most part, everyone on Cleveland feels priced about right. But Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, they continue to get big minutes on a nightly basis. They're going to continue to play big minutes while Markkanen and Love are out. Jared Allen in a matchup against Detroit has a lot of upside here. He has shown some big upside lately. Again, he's going to get massive minutes. His price, though, feels about right. Same could be said for Evan Mobley. Garland, even without Sexton, I think he's priced about right. Ricky Rubio was pretty popular last slate, only 5,200, had a good game off the bench. I was kind of surprised that he came off the bench. I thought they were going to start him last game. He still played 28 minutes, a little bit less than I expected, but he was productive, scored 36 DraftKings points. If Rubio comes off the bench again, which I assume he will, that does kind of hurt his minute ceiling a little bit. I think it's really unlikely that he plays 35, 36 minutes off the bench. He probably still gets 26, 28 minutes. With his price up a little bit, though, if he comes off the bench again, I think Rubio is still a good play. I just don't think he's a standout option like he was last slate. Not as high on Rubio as I was last slate, but obviously is someone you could still go to. But that's probably it for this game. Next one, Portland and Houston. So on Portland today, for the most part, on this team, everyone feels priced about right. There's some tournament plays you could go to here, like Dame, CJ, even Nurkic. I think Nurkic is in a pretty good matchup. I definitely like him in tournaments. He's shown a really low floor this year, but we know the upside is there when he does get the minutes. And against Houston, Nurkic does have a lot of upside. He will be very low owned, I'm sure. Dame in tournaments is fine. Dame's been playing a little bit better lately. We still haven't really seen much of a ceiling from Dame this year. He's yet to put up 50 DraftKings points this season, but at 9,800 in a matchup against Houston. I mean, Dame could absolutely go off here, and nobody would be surprised. I probably won't be rostering Dame on this slate, but he's definitely playable. We'll need to keep an eye on the status of Norman Powell. If Norman Powell does get ruled out, you would probably see Nasir Little move into the starting lineup. He's only 3,200. He would likely play close to 30 minutes, if not more than 30 minutes. He would definitely be a solid value play. He's not a guy that's really shown a ton of point per minute upside. He's never been a super productive player when he's on the floor. But for 3,200, if he were to start, he would be a pretty decent, point per dollar play. But that's probably it for Portland. Now, talking about this Houston team, Houston, I think, another team that feels priced about right. Like, there's no standout plays to me from Houston. Kevin Porter Jr. is questionable again. He's probable, so he's expected to play. I thought he was questionable. He's probable. He's expected to play. Wood, Porter, Tate, like all these guys feel priced about right. Jayshawn Tate might be my favorite play from Houston. He's going to play probably 30 to 32 minutes. He's a guy that can do a little bit of everything, can score, can get rebounds, can get some assists. He's a fine play, but there's not a ton I really love in this Portland-Houston game. So I think we can move on to the next one, talk about Phoenix and Memphis. On Phoenix, this is another team, for the most part, that feels priced right. Devin Booker's 9,500. I'm not going to pay that price tag for Devin Booker. I'd rather play some other guards we've already talked about. LaMelo, Dame, Tatum, I'd rather spend up for. Chris Paul at almost 9K feels priced about right as well. DeAndre Ayton is doubtful. He's not expected to play. But like Frank Kaminsky's up to 5,500 now. JaVale McGee's 4,100. Kaminsky's coming off a massive game last game. He played 32 minutes, had 46 DraftKings points. I'm pretty sure he had a career high 31 points last game. Look, Kaminsky's been playing well off the bench. He's been getting pretty good minutes with Ayton out. But now that he's 5,500, like, you really need Kaminsky to have a good game to be worth rostering at this price point. So I'm probably just going to be off Kaminsky, even with Ayton, unlikely to play. And for the most part, I'm probably off this, this entire Phoenix team. There's no standout plays from the Suns for me today. And on Memphis, it's kind of the same thing. Now, we will need to keep an eye on the status of Steven Adams. This is a pretty big injury. Steven Adams is currently questionable. I assume if Steven Adams does not play, or if he gets ruled out, we will likely see one of Brandon Clark or Xavier Tillman move into the starting lineup. Whichever one were to start, whether it be Tillman or Clark, I think whichever one starts would be a really, really good value play. I think it would boost the upside a little bit for Jaren Jackson Jr. as well. We probably would see Jaren Jackson Jr. get a little bit more center minutes, and he has been actually playing some minutes at center so far lately. And he's been productive lately. At 6,200, I do have interest in Jackson Jr., Triple J, but I would have a lot more interest in him if Steven Adams gets ruled out, and then we would obviously get some good value if Steven Adams gets ruled out. But outside of the Steven Adams injury, like Ja at 10K, I don't think I'm going to go to Bane and Melton. I think without Dylan Brooks, now that Dylan Brooks is out, those guys offer a little bit more upside. Their minutes are a little bit more secure, but they feel priced about right on a big slate like this. So really, we're just going to have to watch the Steven Adams injury because that is pretty important. That does impact a good amount on this slate. We would definitely get some value from Memphis if Steven Adams were to be ruled out. The next game, Sacramento and OKC. This is one that I'm just kind of not interested in at all. Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox finally had a good game last game. We've been saying it for basically the entire season, or at least I have, that De'Aaron Fox at some point is going to put up a 50, 55-point game. And surely enough, last game against the Spurs, 55 DK points, played 35 minutes. Look, De'Aaron Fox has that kind of upside. He has been playing better lately. He's had 2 good back-to-back games. So, the momentum looks good for De'Aaron Fox. I still think on this slate he's not a standout play. But I would say he's probably my favorite play from Sacramento if I had to play anyone on this team. But like Barnes, Holmes, Hield, all feel priced where they should be. Rashawn Holmes against OKC, like this is definitely a good matchup. We've seen Thunder, or we've seen centers be able to kill the Thunder this year. Joe Val just had a massive game against them. But Holmes is priced where he should be. If anything, he's a little bit overpriced. So not too much to love from Sacramento. And on OKC, I mean, this is a team for the most part I just don't really roster at all. The only guys I've really rostered much of from OKC this year is SGA and Giddey. And on this slate, with SGA being priced at almost 9K, Giddey at 6,400, neither one stand out to me. I will say that, the matchup is really good against Sacramento. Sacramento has been playing at a top 10 pace this season. They've had one of the worst defensive ratings as well. They're actually dead last in defensive ratings, so they've been playing really fast. They've been really bad defensively. It wouldn't be surprising to see SGA put up a big game here or Giddey, but to consider them like top plays or core options for me, that's just not going to be the case. They're definitely guys I would probably like sprinkle in if you're playing a ton of lineups, but outside of that, I'm really not that thrilled about any Thunder today. So we'll move on to the next one, talk about Brooklyn and New Orleans. So on Brooklyn, pretty clear for me when it comes to this Brooklyn team. It's KD, it's Harden, that's it. KD at 11-1 feels probably priced where he should be. I definitely would prefer some other studs on this slate. Like I would prefer Giannis. I would prefer Jokic. I might prefer Luka as well. We have the Lakers guys. Like there's a lot of stud options. I don't think either one of KD or Harden are top plays for me. But we've seen that KD and Harden both have a lot of upside. Their floors have been pretty low this year. Like we've definitely seen some disappointing games from these guys. They can put up 40, 45 DK points, but KD does still have a 60, 65 point ceiling. Same could be said for James Harden. He's also been, excuse me, he's also been pretty inconsistent this season, but we know the ceiling is there. We know he can put up a triple-double any night. He just had a triple-double last game against Orlando. I don't think he played at all in the fourth quarter in that game, and he still put up 53 DK points, so he probably would have had a way better game last game, had it not been a blowout. This game maybe has a little bit of blowout risk. Both Harden and KD have an upside, but neither one are, core studs or top options for me. And then on the Pelicans side, we're going to have to watch the status of Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram is once again questionable. He's been questionable for I don't know how long. It seems like almost 2 weeks straight now. But it looks like he did get a full practice in Thursday. So the fact that he got a full practice in makes me assume he's going to be back and he's going to actually play today. So if Brandon Ingram does play, that pretty much takes me off of Devontae Graham, NAW, Josh Hart. The only guy that I would consider from the Pelicans would be J-Val. J-Val's price at $9,300 is pretty high, but this is a really, really good matchup against Brooklyn. Brooklyn's always been a team that has struggled defensively against centers, whether it's LaMarcus Aldridge or Blake Griffin or Paul Millsap. Like none of those guys are going to stop J-Val here. J-Val should be able to dominate in this matchup. Definitely has 55, 60 point upside. He is for sure my favorite play from the Pelicans, and overall, he might be my favorite play from this game in general. But we can move on to the next one, talk about the Mavs and the Spurs. So Luka, 11,100, Porzingis, 6,600. I think these are the two guys I have interest in from Dallas, but really nobody else. Luka at 11-1 on this slate feels probably priced where he should be. Luka's another stud that, so far this year, his floor has been a little bit lower. We have definitely seen some disappointing games from Luka this season. He has definitely underperformed a little bit. But we know the ceiling is there. The upside is still there. The matchup against the Spurs, I think, is one that Luka can definitely excel in. I mean, Luka, for the most part, is matchup proof. He's a good pay-up option. He's not a top stud for me, though, but definitely playable. Porzingis had a really good game last game, 40 DK points in 32 minutes against the Bulls. He's another guy that his floor this year has been pretty low. We have seen some disappointing games from Porzingis, but the upside is there. The price tag at $6,600, I think, is pretty reasonable. If anything, he might be a little bit too cheap. So Luka, Porzingis, both playable. Neither one are top options for me, though. Neither one are going to be priority plays. And then on the San Antonio side, Dejounte Murray at 9,400. Look, I'm a big Dejounte Murray fan. He's going to have a breakout year. He's already having a breakout year. He's probably going to be an all-star this year. But 9,400, that's kind of a tough price tag to pay for Dejounte Murray on an 11-game slate. He's going to be super low owned. I think for the most part, just about everybody in this game is going to be super low owned. So if you want to play a low owned Dejounte Murray in tournaments, I mean, go ahead. We know the upside's there. He's probably the only guy I would be considering from San Antonio, though. With Jakob Poeltl still out, there's going to be minutes available for Thad Young, for Drew Eubanks, but Thad Young's almost 6K now. Drew Eubanks is almost 5K. Neither one really stand out at their price points anymore. So that's it for this game. Next one, Atlanta and Denver. So in Atlanta today, we do have two very important injuries to watch. Bogdan Bogdanovic and DeAndre Hunter are both questionable. Both guys were out last game, and we did see Kevin Huerter draw the start. He played massive minutes, 39 minutes, had a really good game, scored 42 DraftKings points. Kevin Huerter's only 4K today. I assume if both those guys are out again, we would see Kevin Huerter start and probably play 35, close to 40 minutes. He would definitely be one of the best value plays on the slate, in my opinion, if Bogdan and Hunter are out. If one of the two play, we could still see Huerter start because obviously Bogdan and Hunter are both starters. Last game they started Huerter and they started Solomon Hill. So just keep an eye on this. This is obviously very important news. Now, if Bogdan and Hunter both play, then I really don't like anything from Atlanta. Even Trae Young on this slate, I don't really have much interest in against Denver. Same with John Collins, same with Capella. So for me, from this Atlanta team, it's just wait and see on Bogdan and Hunter. If those guys get ruled out, then we will definitely get a good play from Atlanta and Kevin Huerter, who I would like a lot for value. On the Denver side, though, Nikola Jokic, 11-7. Very, very expensive. On this slate, there is some good value at center. We've already talked about Isaiah Stewart. We're going to talk about Tony Bradley in a second from the Bulls side with Vooch out today. But Jokic at 11-7, if you're going to pay up at center, he's definitely one of the top options. If you're looking for a stud in general to pay up for, you can never go wrong with Jokic. I mean, we've seen Jokic has a massive ceiling, at least 60 DraftKings points in 3 of his last 5 games. Jokic is one of those guys that can put up 65, 70 DK points any night. He's right up there with Giannis in terms of like my favorite stud. Anytime Jokic is on a slate, he is going to be a top option for the most part. And I think him and Giannis are probably like the two highest projected studs just in terms of fantasy point projection. So Jokic against Atlanta, I definitely have interest in here. Will Barton at 6,900. Without Michael Porter Jr., there's definitely going to be more opportunity for Will Barton. But now that he's 6,900, I'm probably going to get off of him, especially with Jokic back. I think Will Barton was a really good play when he was 5,500. But now that he's almost priced at 7K, kind of off of Will Barton. And with Jokic back, I'm off of everyone else. Aaron Gordon, Morris, Dozier. Like, I'm not going to play any of these guys with Jokic back. So I think it's just Jokic, and that's it from Denver. Last two games of the night, though, we'll start off with the Bulls and Warriors first. So the Bulls side, this is probably the most important team, I would say, or most like, team you want to roster the most, I should say, because Vooch is out today for the Bulls, and I think he's going to be out for a few games with COVID issues. I think he tested positive for COVID. So we're going to see a lot of potential plays from Chicago today. Without Vooch, we should expect the usage to be dominated by DeRozan, Levine, Lonzo. Kobe White is he's going to debut sometime up during the upcoming road trip. So I guess this will be something to monitor. Kobe White could play today. I don't think he's been cleared to practice, but I don't think he's going to play yet. I mean, he didn't play last game, and he wasn't. It's weird that he's not listed as like out on Draftkings, but like he's not on he's not like officially playing right now. I saw that last game on Wednesday's slate. Kobe White was like not listed as out, but he didn't play. So I don't think he plays today, but keep an eye on that. I think Kobe White will return at some point. But if he's out, then we should expect the usage to be dominated by DeRozan, Levine, Lonzo. So far this year, we have somewhat of a decent sample size of the Bulls without Vooch on the floor. So DeMar DeRozan's played 116 minutes without Vooch on the floor, has averaged 1.34 fantasy points per minute with a 37.9% usage rate. Zach LaVine has only played 32 minutes without Vooch, but he's averaged 1.46 fantasy points per minute with a 42.8% usage rate. Massive usage for both Levine and DeRozan. And then Lonzo Ball, he's not much of a high usage player, but he has averaged 1.09 fantasy points per minute without Vooch. So I think DeRozan, Levine, Lonzo, all these guys look like a really good plays today. Levine, to start off with, is my favorite. 8K on DraftKings is just too cheap. They didn't even really move his price, even though Vooch is out today. And on Yahoo, his price tag didn't move over there either. Only $34. Love Levine here. Think he's going to get a ton of usage, a ton of opportunity. The matchup against the Warriors, I kind of like. The Warriors, they have been a really good defensive team this year, but they also do play at a really fast pace. I think this in general should be a very fast-paced game. Levine's been playing a ton of minutes this season. He should get massive minutes here. If it's a close game, he should get more opportunity and increased usage without Vooch. So I like Zach LaVine a lot. I think DeRozan's a good play as well. Lonzo at 6,500 is probably my second favorite play from Chicago when you look at the price tag. I definitely like him at this price point. And on Yahoo, I think he's a really good play over there as well. $25 at the point guard position. So, Lonzo Ball, not much of a high usage player, but he does have a 22.9% usage rate this season without Vooch on the floor. And again, he's averaged over a fantasy point per minute. I've kind of been off of all these Bulls guys this year. Like, I haven't really rostered Levine or Vooch or Lonzo or even DeRozan that much this season. But now that Vooch is out, like, that just kind of makes it pretty clear where you want to go. We know where the shots are going. We know who's going to dominate the usage. It should be these three guys. I think they're all good plays today. I don't know if I would play all three in the same lineup, but Levine, DeRozan, Lonzo, I like all three of those guys a lot. And then we need to talk about some potential value. So we're going to have to wait and see what the starting lineup is, but I assume either Alzay Johnson or Tony Bradley is going to start in place of Vooch. For the most part this season, Tony Bradley has been the backup center. So at 3K stone minimum, I think Tony Bradley looks like probably one of the best point per dollar values right now. And he's minimum salary on Yahoo as well. So definitely like Tony Bradley on both sides. He's always been a pretty productive player when he gets minutes. So far this season, he's been like a fantasy point per minute player. He's always been around a fantasy point per minute player throughout his career. I will say, though, that this matchup against Golden State does scare me because this is definitely a game that could go small. Like, Draymond Green a lot of times is going to be the center for the Warriors whenever whenever they're closing out the game. Obviously, Kevon Looney is going to start at center, but Looney's not going to play, closing minutes for the most part. It's going to be Draymond out there at center. So I think Tony Bradley starts. I think he still plays like 22, 24 minutes. I don't think he plays like 30 minutes, though. I don't think we need him to play 30 minutes, though, because he's so cheap. He's a productive player when he does get minutes. He could put up 25, 26 DraftKings points in only 20 minutes. Even if he doesn't play a ton of minutes, I still think he projects as a really good point per dollar value. But if you want to play the narrative that this game kind of goes small, you could play Alzay Johnson. I think Alzay Johnson could see some more increased minutes. without Vooch. If they do decide to play small, they could play him at center. I mean, he could even start at center. We don't really know. We don't know what the starting lineup is going to be. So just keep an eye on that. If Alze starts, he's a great value. If Tony Bradley starts, I would like him a lot for value. So, it's a late night game. You're going to need to keep an eye on this, but just, see who starts for the Bulls. Whichever one starts at center is the guy that I prefer between Johnson or Bradley. I assume it's going to be one of those two. But that's it for Chicago. Now on the Golden State side, not nearly as much interest here, but we do have another big injury to watch with Draymond Green. So I just talked about how Draymond, how he plays a lot of center minutes, especially late in the game. If Draymond were to be out, that could make it a lot more likely this game doesn't go small, and maybe you see Kevon Looney out there in the closing lineup. Maybe you would see like Bielitsa. But this Draymond news is pretty important. If Draymond does sit, that would probably mean more minutes for Otto Porter, more minutes for Nemanja Bjelica. I don't know what they would do with the starting lineup, but whichever one of Porter or Bjelica would start in place of Draymond, whichever one starts would be a really strong value. Draymond himself, I think, is a fine play in the mid-range. He should be super low owned on this slate. Curry at 11.6. He's priced about right. I think Curry has a ton of upside every night. The matchup against the Bulls, though, may not be the best. This Bulls team is really good defensively. Lonzo's a really good defender. But Curry has plenty of upside. I still would probably put like Jokic and Giannis ahead of Curry, and even maybe the Lakers guys too. But definitely going to have to keep an eye on this Draymond news because it is very important. If Draymond does get ruled out, we probably would get some value from Golden State with guys like Porter, Bielitsa, and then maybe Looney plays a few more minutes too. But I think Porter and Bielitsa would be the guys we'd really want to look to. But last game of the night, we got the Timberwolves and the Lakers. So looking at Minnesota today, Karl-Anthony Towns against the Lakers. I kind of like him here. The Lakers so far this year have been a pretty bad defensive team. Looking at defensive rating, the Lakers are, let's see, where are they? They've been about, I think I have the wrong stuff pulled up. It says they have the best defensive rating in the league. Okay, there it goes. It just updated. So the Lakers have been, where are they at? I think they're about, all right, so they're 13th in defensive rating. The Knicks are 26th in defensive rating. I had the wrong thing pulled up. I had last year's pulled up. So when I was talking earlier about how the Knicks have been a defensive team, that's not true. They're 26th in defensive rating. But the Lakers have been 13th in defensive rating, so about middle of the pack. They are playing at a really fast pace, though. They're playing at actually the fastest pace in the league so far this season. The Timberwolves are playing at the 9th fastest pace. So this should be another pretty fast-paced game. I think Karl-Anthony Towns, even though he might match up with Anthony Davis a good amount in this game, he's a good play. I think he's going to be low-owned in tournaments. I definitely like Cat as a low-owned tournament play. Anthony Edwards is coming off a massive game, went for 67 Draftkings points, played 42 minutes. Like, he's going to get massive minutes here. His ceiling is obviously high. His floor, though, is kind of low for an $8,100 player. He's not going to project that well at this salary. But obviously the ceiling is there, especially in a good matchup against a bad Lakers team in what should be a fast-paced game. There are definitely some good tournament plays from Minnesota. I don't think there's any standout plays or core options of mine, but Towns, Edwards, even Russell, I like in tournaments. Pat Bev is probably going to play big minutes here. They're going to need his defense against Russell Westbrook. I assume he'll probably start again. He's been starting lately. He's been playing big minutes as well. So he's a fine value at 4,200. That's it for Minnesota. And on the Lakers side, Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis, I think, are both decent pay-up options here. Again, this should be a fast-paced game. Both these teams defensively have not been great this year. So Westbrook, he's looked a lot better lately in terms of fantasy. In terms of real-life basketball, he hasn't played that well, but he's been stuffing the stat sheet. He's put up a triple-double in 2 straight games. At 11-2, I think Russell Westbrook is still a top option. He's going to get a ton of opportunity without LeBron. He's going to play a ton of minutes. We know the triple-double upside is there. And same could be said for Anthony Davis. He's going to get a ton of opportunity without LeBron. Both these guys feel priced about right for the most part, but we know the ceiling is there for both Westbrook and Davis. And then we do need to talk about some potential value here. So Austin Reeves is out right now, and Rajon Rondo is questionable. We saw Reeves and Rondo both be out last game, and Malik Monk played really, really well off the bench. He got a ton of minutes, played 35 minutes in that game against the Heat, scored 41 Draftkings points. I don't think we can expect Malik Monk to score 41 Draftkings points again, but I do expect him to play pretty big minutes off the bench with Reeves out, with Rondo questionable. I mean, Monk's going to be a pretty consistent part of this Lakers rotation all season, and especially without LeBron, they're going to need some scoring. Monk's been providing them that lately, especially last game at 3,600. I don't think he gets much ownership on a big slate like this, so he is definitely worth a shot, worth a dart throw if you're needing a guard value play. And if you're playing like the late slate, I think he'd be a really good late slate play. But that's probably it from the Lakers, guys, and I think that's it for all 11 games today. So hope you guys enjoyed the game-by-game breakdown. Hopefully this video helped you. If you enjoyed, click that like button, guys. Click that subscribe button as well. Check out the sponsor of the video, PrizePicks. If you have not yet, sign up for PrizePicks, guys. Use promo code NOAH when you do sign up for PrizePicks, and they will match your first deposit, give you a free bet up to $100. But that's it, guys. I'm done. Good luck on the slate. I appreciate you watching, and we will see you in the next video. Peace.